what snapped the system was the movement of 235 million ounces from London to New York at the end of 2024 and the beginning of 2025. And what we've seen there basically is a empty barrel in the London markets where all these billions of ounces of claims still sit. And the world is going to become very local, Sean, and I think it's going to become very local in 2026. The London and New York markets are going to become increasingly irrelevant as it becomes clearer even to the most asleep people out there that they are selling promises, they're not selling actual goods, and that you can inflate promises to infinity. You can increase them without limit, and that's what has happened over the decades. And now the fraud is folding in on itself.
Hey friends, welcome back. Happy New Year. This is the first broadcast of 2026 and my final interview of 2025. We recorded this one on the 31st. Now, as you're hearing this, the overseas markets are probably open and silver could be up $4, could be down $4, but it doesn't really matter because the vault doors are slamming shut. This is one of the biggest stories of 2026 and beyond. Got physical? Before we start, just a quick word about a valued sponsor which sells tangible assets. If you're over 40 and planning to retire someday, the window to protect what you've built may be smaller than you realize. Here's a question most people never ask. Is your portfolio built for what's coming next? The debasement of our currency? Many investors in their 40s and 50s discover they have little to no exposure to precious metals. That means their savings are largely tied to markets, policies, and paper assets with very little real protection if conditions change. As retirement moves from someday to on the horizon for you, protecting what you've already built becomes just as important as growing it. That's where Noble Gold Investments comes in, helping investors reduce risk by adding physical gold and/or silver to their portfolios. Right now is a smart time to talk with Noble Gold Investments. This isn't investment advice. Do your own due diligence. But we can promise you this: no pressure, no sales gimmicks, just clear answers and a strategy built around your goals. And for a limited time, you can receive this 3-ounce American Virtues Independence Silver Round as a bonus available for new qualified accounts. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com and build your portfolio for the long term. That's noblegoldinvestments.com. The link is below. Hey friends, welcome back. Thanks so much for being here. Sean from SGT Report with my final interview of 2025, but it just happens to be about one of the two biggest stories of 2025 and 2026. I'm talking about the biggest story, in my opinion, who really was behind the assassination of Charlie Kirk. That story will continue in 2026. And what really is 1 ounce of physical silver worth? I think we're going to find out in 2026. Silver, the metal of wealth, purity, and beauty. David Jensen is my last guest of 2025, and he's back. David, how are you, sir?
I'm well, Sean. Great to be back with you again.
You know, my friend, it is so great to have you, and I want to play a rant from Angry White Guy in just a second. And yes, guys, we will be hearing from Asian Guy, at least briefly in this broadcast with David as well. And I think it is an intelligence op, but that doesn't make it necessarily untrue. I think there's a lot of truth coming from Asian Guy. But before we get to the brass tacks, I want people to understand just how sold out we have been. And friends, please, send this to your friends, neighbors, and colleagues. Send this to the sheeple people who still maybe don't understand why they are the victims of inflation and the destruction of their currency's purchasing power. I want to remind everybody right now, you can almost triple your money for free. Go to the bank and get a box of pennies and pull out and save the 1982 and prior pennies, because each one is worth almost 4 cents in copper value. By the way, each nickel is worth slightly more than a nickel. This while the U.S. government phases out pennies altogether. Why? Because they're too expensive to make even out of zinc. Ladies and gentlemen, they are destroying our way of life in real time. And I'll remind you that right now, a 10-cent piece with silver, it's worth over $5. How about a $50? It's going to cost you about $26. And a Morgan dollar. $1 back in the day is now worth 55 fiat dollars. David, we've been sold out, and the silver story tells us we're continuing to be sold out, and pretty soon Americans will be penniless in the nation their forefathers conquered.
Yeah, well, they'll be penniless because they've been taken out of circulation as well. But this is the old debasement game that the money changers have engaged in now. For more than a century, they've created a fiat currency, sideline gold and silver, which are virtuous, steady measures of value. And they've put the country, US, Canada, Europe, we've all been put onto this treadmill of central planning and currency debasement, which has created enormous speculative bubbles, which has been great for wealth accretion for those in the financial sector. But the inflation numbers that are published never recognize the true drop in buying power of our currency. And so year after year after year, people become steadily poorer because their wages never keep up with the actual debasement of the buying power of these digital currencies. So, in the 1970s, a shoe salesman could afford a 3-bedroom house and a car, and could afford for his wife to stay home and take care of children. And you can't do that on even 2 salaries to a large extent now. People are leveraged up to their eyeballs in debt, and the fiat currency debt Ponzi is basically caving in on itself like an undercooked cake. And so here we are, Sean.
It just breaks my heart. Okay, before I hit record, you know where I'm coming from on this, David. This is no laughing matter, and I'm really fearful for my brethren in this country because most people, not only are they completely unprepared, okay, they don't own tangible assets like physical silver, physical gold. Most folks are strapped and in debt, as you noted, and I'm afraid that they're not going to know exactly who to blame. And when shit really hits the fan, they're going to take to the streets. And I just want them to know who the enemy is. The enemy is the criminal bankers. And this from Michael Snyder, posted at Zero Hedge, 30 numbers from 2025 that are almost too crazy to believe. I want to read just a couple of these. Guys, in 1999, a Gallup survey found that 70% of Americans were satisfied with the way things were going in the United States. As 2025 ends, only 24% of Americans think we're on the right track. Now, what's worse than that, in 1980, we hit $1 trillion in debt, which was a big deal. Today, over $38 trillion in debt, with seemingly no end in sight, which leads me to Angry White Guy. First, though, before I play Angry White Guy, David, do you want to comment on anything I just read there from Michael Snyder? Because those are really crazy numbers, and I was alive and well in 1999.
Yeah, I mean, in 1999, the total M2 money that was in the system was about $4.5 trillion. Today, M2 money that's in the system is 22.5 trillion. So you're looking at a 5x, a 5 times increase in the amount of money in the system that's been debased grossly. Yes, it's juiced the financial markets, it's sent stocks higher, but that 5x move in the total amount of currency in the system is washing through to the cost of real goods in the economy. Some things like oil have been trending down a little bit recently because of the increase in production, a number of other factors dropping of demand or flatlining of demand globally. But overall, that 5x move in the amount of money is sloshing around financial markets and the economy, and a portion of it is seeking safe haven now. And that's why you're seeing this silver market basically going ape, as it were. And there's so little of these real assets out there to protect the buying power of people's savings. Certainly it's not going to be currency that's going to protect them, and it's certainly not going to be bonds that's going to protect them as interest rates continue to rise. So it's no wonder people are feeling malaise, Sean.
Well, we're in a lot of trouble. And let me just point out that people are feeling more than malaise. Those that are paying attention are hardcore pissed off at this administration. Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, they seem incapable of doing most of what was promised, right? We're going to drain the swamp. We're going to arrest the bad guys. We're going to bring to justice those who cheated in the election and rigged the election, right? We're going to bring the Epstein files public and arrest the bad guys. None of that is happening. And now Americans are reaching a breaking point. I listened to this earlier today. I want to play it for posterity's sake, David, for you, for the audience, for everybody to fully understand as we watch Tim Walz and the Demon Rats literally loot the state of Minnesota. People are feeling like nothing's going to happen to stop that either. Okay, there will never be any arrests because both parties have sold us out.
Has anybody else started to reach their breaking point or a boiling point? So this is starting to look like a country that I am no longer proud to have served. I've been working my entire adult life, and I have paid half or more than half back to the government in some way, shape, or form in taxes for the past 30 years. And if you don't believe me, look up everything that you have that is taxed. State income tax, federal income tax, property taxes, payroll taxes, Medicare taxes, Medicaid taxes, sales taxes. Everything is taxed. Everything. And we have a political apparatus where half of them say that if you don't keep us in power, we will steal from you so that we can import people that will. So shut up and go back to work. And another side of the aisle that is either in on it or is totally complete chicken shit and won't do anything about it and won't even try to actually represent the people that vote for them. Is anybody else getting to a point where we feel like we cannot vote our way out of this? Where does that leave us? Because nothing is going to happen about the fraud. Nothing. All of the fraud that Elon Musk and Doge exposed, the Republican Congress put it on the back burner and refused to fucking vote on it. Turned around to the American voter that put them in power and extended one of these. It doesn't matter what we do. This situation is completely freaking unsustainable. Totally and completely unsustainable. It's a waste of time to vote, and it's a waste of energy to pay taxes so that we can give it to people that are going to steal from us. And then we can send it to other countries that hate us. And we can send it to people in the European Union that look down their nose at the American worker and say, good little bitch, go back to work. It's putting us in a helpless situation. And I don't think the people in Washington living in that bubble realize the anger that is fuming outside of the borders of that city. And I am not interested in watching another fucking theatrical congressional hearing where a couple of ballsy Republicans bitch out a fucking corrupt leftist and then nothing happens. Accountability and a fucking tax strike is what needs to happen.
All right. I just wanted to play that for posterity's sake, David. People are really starting to lose it because we have been thrown under the bus, not only with our currency, obviously. It feels like our country's been conquered without a shot ever having been fired, David. People are really, really starting to feel that way.
Yeah, his attention is, high taxes are a problem, but his attention is deflected to taxation. And when you increase the amount of currency in the system by 5 times in 25 years, bad things happen. They always happen. And, Ron Paul's message of sound money is the answer. And how many of the people in the political class are calling for sound money? That's the question. And so far, I've identified 0 that are calling for sound money in Canada, and I can't see any in the U.S. either. So it's the source of our problem, Sean. And I think what's going to come out of this is private money and the ditching of these government garbage currencies that are circulating there, that have their buying power destroyed by these central planners on a continual basis, on a rolling basis over the decades.
Well, let me just point out too, you're in British Columbia, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. In Canada, right, the top 5% way of dying now in Canada, did you know that's government-assisted suicide now accounts for 1 in 20 deaths in Canada? Yeah. So not only has the system moved against us and our families and our money, it is now literally moving against our very lives. God forbid you need emergency services. You may not be able to get them in Canada, but what they will give you is government-assisted suicide. now accounting for 1 in 20 deaths in Canada.
Well, I mean, the MAID program is definitely repugnant. Unfortunately, what we have in North America and Europe is that without the MAID program being public, is that doctors are doing these things themselves for dying patients behind the curtain. That's been going on for more than a century. And in a way, I think the MAID program is good because it brings to light interventional suiciding of people. And then people can see it and can speak out against it and stop it. So, but it's an unfortunate feature of what we have going on. And as we recall, in the Soviet Union, they started using tools of assessment of insanity to put people in jail. And I'm concerned that that's one of the tools that's going to be coming now in the future here to control people, is as these government programs expand, they start to designate the enemies of the state or enemies of the political powers, the political parties in power, as insane, and start locking them up. So,
hey, that's very interesting.
Good to get it out in the open.
Let me tell you something that's very interesting, because Candace's investigation into who really assassinated Charlie Kirk is causing a lot of folks, some of them within TPUSA, to lose their minds and claim that she should be put in a mental facility for asking the questions that she's asking. Involuntary incarceration for mental illness. That is what Josh Hammer, a Zionist, is calling for regarding Candace Owens and the things she's saying, the things she's uncovering, the questions she's asking, because who really murdered Charlie Kirk? Josh Hammer says the witch should be put in a mental institution.
In a just society, she'd be in a mental ward right now. She would have been in a mental ward a while ago. I personally am a big proponent of bringing back the involuntary commitment laws of the 1960s. In my view, she should be involuntarily committed to a mental asylum.
That is the playbook of the Bolsheviks. And I just want to point out to folks that silver in physical form is now moving from west to east. It's undeniable, it's trackable, it's traceable, and you can't build the future with paper silver. Here's David's latest: Asian guy's sudden silver story and bullion banks shorting big silver still. Do you want to take us through just some of the highlights in this article before we play a clip from Asian Guy?
Asian Guy is an AI feature. There's more than 20 videos that have come out in about a 3-week period. And about, I'd say 75-80% of what he says is correct. But the best source of disinfo and to mislead the public is when you provide 80% or 90 or 95% of what you say is true. And then on the crucial issues, you misguide people. For me, just hearing one mistruth is enough. And so I've basically switched him off. Do you want to do the clip first and we can talk about what's driving silver now? Or
yeah, maybe, because what I think is significant about Asian Guy is that I've sort of posited the thesis that this may be Chinese intelligence. It may not be. Who knows who's behind these? But
it's a digital box. It's all
no,
we know.
right.
It's
100%. It's AI. What I'm saying is that for the unindoctrinated, for those who don't speak the silver language, for those who have no idea of the actual supply-demand constraints, for those that don't understand it takes 10 years or more to bring a silver mine online, for those that don't understand on January 1st, China is going to cease exporting silver. For those that don't understand any of that, and they think just by looking at a chart, silver must certainly be in a bubble that's ready to pop, I think Asian Guy provides a lot of important truth. Let's just listen to a little bit about this, because as we're having this conversation on December 31st, silver's down $4 to 72, platinum down 121 to 2,000, gold down a mere $9 to 4,335. There is a battle between the paper markets, the COMEX future pricing, and the Shanghai price. There's a huge spread between the two, and it's a chasm that I think will only widen in 2026.
The world is not burning. Let them have their party. Let them have their ignorance, because while they are clinking glasses, the vault doors are slamming shut. It is December 31st, 2025. I'm not here to wish you a happy new year. I'm here to deliver a final warning. Look at what happened yesterday. The LBMA website went dark. Australian customs blocked silver shipments. The $70 bear trap failed as physical buyers swallowed every ounce the banks threw at them. But what happens tonight, at midnight Beijing time, makes all of that look like a paper cut before a sword wound. While the West drinks champagne, China is executing the most significant change to the global metals market in 50 years. The rumors are confirmed. The timeline is set. In this emergency broadcast, I'm going to show you exactly how China's 44-company export lockdown works.
All right. So they're going to lock down the exports of physical silver starting January 1st. We're having this conversation on New Year's Eve. And meanwhile, by the way, guys, remember the $7 slam just the other day? Bixweir reported yesterday that that was $1.4 billion in COMEX paper silver being thrown at the market to bring the price down $7. This is a battle, a monetary war happening in real time. And I think Asian Guy is part of that intelligence warfare that's going on. David, back to you.
Well, first of all, the LBMA website going dark has zero effect on the silver market. The LBMA, the London Bullion Market Association, is an association of traders, and it does not provide real-time data to the market. So that part is irrelevant. In terms of China locking down exports, well, what they're saying is that you can't export silver without a license. They're not saying that you can't get silver exported. And this is why I object to this Asian guy. So much of what he says is mistruth or colored truth.
But can I just interject though? See, because
Yeah.
I think you're painting with a wide brush and that's okay, but let me just push back gently because I do this about the Candace thing all the time. I've listened to all of the Candace broadcasts for 3 months. So a lot of people will criticize Candace when they haven't listened to any or just a few. And maybe something similar going on here because what I'm hearing Asian guys say, because I listened to that entire thing that I just stopped playing, he goes on to talk about those 44 licenses. Those are basically CCP, Chinese Communist Party licenses at the highest level. If you don't have one of those licenses, you're not going to be able to get approval to export an ounce of metal. And those licenses are going to the top companies under the control of the CCP. So the color commentary I would provide is, I think he's right, the vault doors are slamming shut. And you can't build the future with paper silver, David.
Well, I agree with the latter. I think that we have highly limited supply because of 40 years of price fixing in London of the world's silver market. What we're seeing and what I'm trying to get to the center of in the article that you have up there, Sean, is that there's billions of ounces of non-existent silver sold into the London market, into the cash market for immediate delivery, immediate ownership and immediate delivery. And what people saw in 2025 was basically a failure of the London market. Multiple month delays for delivery when it should be 2 days. The market actually locked up, not as Asian guy says that, that London locked up yesterday, but there was an hour and a half suspension of trading on October 10th. And everybody saw that with 140 million ounces, 170 million ounces in the London market, still apparently not held by the ETFs, that there was zero silver available to market. And so that was the bottom of the barrel. And what's happening now, Sean, is that these billions of ounces, these holders of billions of ounces, are fanning out around the world at the margins, not every single one of them, because people learn over time. It's a gradual process. But what we're seeing now is enough of these billions of ounces are fanning out, the holders of them are fanning out, and they're scouring the world's markets for silver bars because they're recognizing this scam of a market that's been operating in London is just that. And so UBS said a couple of months ago that we're seeing a 300 million ounce deficit in terms of supply next year in 2026. But that can easily become 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times greater than that as these people depart from this paper promissory note market and source the real bars. So the COMEX market, which is a hedging market, was never intended to be a physical market. And London, they're being pushed to the side, and people are saying, just give us the bars. And this situation, I think, is going to mushroom very, very quickly because of the imbalance that's been built up by price fixing for many decades. And as you noted earlier, it takes 10 years or more to put a new mine into production. And the vast amount of silver, over 90% of it, comes as a byproduct of mining other metals. So no matter how much, the silver production is a secondary metal that's produced in many mines, and no matter what the price of silver does, it takes a very long time to bring more silver production online, because the primary metals in these markets don't justify increasing production to get out the 2, 3, 4, 5% more silver.
Sorry for a quick break, guys. You guys have probably seen the headlines about Ozempic and similar miracle weight loss devices. Major analysis found that people who stopped taking these weight loss injections gain nearly all their weight back within a year, and that's if they don't have other health complications. This is why I like BioTrust's GLP-1 Elevate, and everyone is obsessed with the weight management results they're seeing with it. It'll help your body naturally trigger the same hunger-controlling, craving-reducing signals that Ozempic claims to, but without needles, prescriptions, or scary side effects. It also promotes the feeling of fullness, helping reduce hunger hormones. It supports fat loss instead of muscle loss, and helps maintain healthy blood sugar levels. For a limited time, you can grab BioTrust GLP-1 Elevate for 40% off only at trimwithsgt.com. Plus, you'll also receive a 60-day satisfaction guarantee and free express shipping on subscriptions. Once again, go to trimwithsgt.com to get this deal right now. The link is below.
The primary metals in these markets don't justify increasing production to get out the 2, 3, 4, 5% more silver.
Pretty remarkable that the overnight low in COMEX silver was right at the trend line we've been following since late November. Will be interesting to see what happens next. It will be interesting to see what happens when markets open in the new year, because this story that will unfold in 2026 it's a liquidity story. And what I mean is, there is no liquid physical silver left, folks, and you cannot build Tesla car batteries, solar panels, or a future for your nation without physical silver. And that is the chicken that is finally coming home to roost. David, I guess the question I'd ask is, why did it take people this long to realize what you and I have been talking about for a decade? And I guess the other thing, part B of that question would be, are you surprised at how quickly it's all unraveling? By the way, last time you were on, I should have sold the top in Bitcoin and bought a mountain of silver. I remember literally saying to you during the last broadcast, David, oh my God, you realize with one Bitcoin right now, a person could purchase 2,200 ounces of physical silver? Well, that number's down to, I think, around 1,000.
Yeah, and it's going to go to zero, because you're asking why people took so long to figure this out, and they've been following NFL football and chasing BS assets like crypto. There's 23,000 different crypto assets in the world. They're all special. And John Paulson of Paulson Funds said it best, I think, that crypto is a limited supply of nothing. It's a complete promotion. And so while people were sleeping, while they were watching their entertainment, while they're watching their entertaining fake assets, this market was just boiling away under the surface. And what changed, what snapped the system, was the movement of 235 million ounces from London to New York at the end of 2024 and the beginning of 2025. And what we've seen there basically is a empty barrel in the London markets, where all these billions of ounces of claims still sit. And the world is going to become very local, Sean, and I think it's going to become very local in 2026. The London and New York markets are going to become increasingly irrelevant as it becomes clearer, even to the most asleep people out there, that they are selling promises and they're not selling actual goods, and that you can inflate promises to infinity. You can increase them without limit, and that's what has happened over the decades. And now the fraud is folding in on itself.
It's so interesting, man. I got to tell you, just a little anecdotal story. Maybe I can go and find it. But there's a relatively well-known Bitcoin guy on YouTube, but he also posts on X. And the other day he posted the following. I'm going off memory. He posted, "Gold is garbage, silver is garbage, Bitcoin is truth." And I said, well, you know what? Maybe hubris should be one of the 7 deadly sins, because I'll remind you that you can't build Bitcoin mining farms without physical silver. So it's not quite garbage. And this is interesting too. CNBC ignoring the silver story all year. Now they're saying the real market bubble heading into 2026 may not be AI. It could be this metal.
Yeah.
I mean, are you serious? And that's their pro take on it. You probably have to pay for that ridiculous take. Let me point out, folks, that the market bubble that is AI and these AI data centers that they want to build out so that you'll own nothing and be happy and your energy prices go through the roof so you can't afford to heat your home. Well, you can't build those AI data centers without physical silver. The silver story in 2026, I think it's the silver story for the next decade, if not longer. David?
Yeah, the mainstream media is going to diss silver and gold because the escape pod from this failing centrally planned currency system are silver and gold. Those are the escape pods, and ultimately it's private money and private exchange away from the destructive impact of these central planners. And so the media, which is controlled by the same people that control the central planners, is going to have a unified message that, silver is crazy, it's a bubble, people are insane, etc., etc. What's insane is the price fixing system that they've had for decades, and that system is in collapse. And that's the end of that's the entirety of the story there, Sean. Is it's a fake system, it's a fake pricing system, it's a fake supply system, and now the market has been irreversibly changed because everybody can see that there's nowhere near enough metal out there. Not only that, but it's becoming apparent that the destructive practice of the central banks is going to weaken our currency further going forward, and people are going to be seeking the protection of these very rare and very limited real monetary and stable safe haven assets.
The other thing I want to note for the audience, David, is that as we sit at $72 silver, the COMEX price on silver today, the Shanghai price is probably $10 higher. I haven't looked. It may, in fact, be $13, $14, $15 higher. There is a spread, an arbitrage that should not be that large. That arbitrage should close, but it's not going to close. It's only going to widen, in my opinion. Do you want to just briefly explain to folks why there is that giant gap right now between Shanghai physical prices and the COMEX paper price, David? Because it's super important that people get this.
Yeah, the COMEX price is not settled in metal. Some people can get metal. There's not nearly enough metal in the vaults to give people delivery. But the most important thing there, Sean, or an additional important point, is that the COMEX rulebook is written so there can be forced cash settlement. So even individuals standing for delivery can be met with a forced cash settlement, and it may be a premium to the price. None of that is typically disclosed, but the market in New York is a paper market with delivery at the margins. Some people get delivery, but even that supply is going to dry up now as the arbitrage gets bigger and bigger, and it's going to become apparent that no meaningful supply will be made available through New York or London. And at that point, it's an acceleration in the global race, the spreading out and the seeking of these very rare and exceedingly valuable real assets.
Well, I want to remind people of that last article too, right? The pro take is that AI is not the bubble. It could be silver that's the bubble with $38.5 trillion in debt and counting. Let me just remind people, today's COMEX price around 72. Just to get back to the 1980 high of $50 in today's dollars, because they printed so many damn dollars, we need to hit about $215, $220, according to Mike Maloney. But if you account for the real M2 money supply, the real printing, the hidden money, the trillions going to the banks, the bailout money, you count for everything, you're talking about $600 to $700 per ounce silver. So I don't think we're anywhere near a top, but where we are in this story, David, is we're nearing the realm of price discovery, right? The market's trying to figure out what 1 ounce of physical silver is really worth. And right now it's worth a lot more in Shanghai than it is to the Wall Street bankers. But again, you can't build Teslas and solar panels with paper silver or cash. Cash settlement's not going to help, David.
No, it's not. I mean, fraud is repugnant to any market, and the fraud has become disclosed enough in London the fraud of that cash market with billions of ounces of claims standing, and it has become apparent enough that those who need to source silver are going to other markets because they recognize that there's nobody is going to get their full amount of silver if a meaningful number of people stand for delivery in London, which they have. I mean, the lease rates are starting to arc up again now. They're over 8% on the 1 month lease tenor. And this problem is not going away. The shortage is going to intensify in 2026. And London and New York are going to get shunted to the side as price setting platforms. And I believe within just a very few years, we're going to have multiple gold and silver markets around the world that are going to be based upon actual allocated bars for sale and for trading. And that's how we'll ultimately get true price discovery back, Sean.
We're hearing rumors, because I don't know how to verify some of this stuff. Big Swear maybe does, others might, you might, but we're hearing rumors that the American banks have somehow magically covered their shorts. JP Morgan, I don't know how Citibank, Bank of America, et cetera, would get out of these shorts so easily, but is that true? Because, you know, what you wrote here is bullion banks are still shorting big silver. But the other part of that rumor we're hearing is that it's the European banks, HSBC, UBS, Scotiabank, Deutsche Bank. They're the ones that are trapped in shorts. What do you think is the veracity of any of those claims?
I don't know. I haven't seen any official data to support it. There's a lot of, kind of hyperventilating, talking about JP Morgan going long 750 million ounces, and these other banks are doomed, and I don't know. We did see today that the New York Fed, in what's called the repo market, that's the overnight repurchase market, where the Fed will take assets on board and give cash to banks. And let me just pull up the actual number here, but it was of the order of about
the first repo market bailout, I think right around the $7 slam. I might have this wrong, but I thought it was 17 billion, and that was just for starters.
Yeah, no, the New York Fed overnight, so today's December 31, they had injected $74.6 billion into the banking system overnight through a repo operation. And when you go back multiple years, you can see that this was at quiescent levels until relatively quiescent levels until 2019. It got a bit crazy in terms of their injections, and then COVID hit, and they injected all kinds of capital into the markets. But then we've had basically 4 years of nothing, and then overnight we've hit the 75 billion level now. And so clearly something's cooking off. But there's not enough disclosure out there to understand which banks are having a problem and are requiring this liquidity injection. So we'll have to see with time, but it's clear something's going wrong. Interesting that these injections have started over the last few months and have ramped up to 75 billion now, just as the silver situation is escalating. So it may be an indication that there are bullion banks that need liquidity, because the shorts on their balance sheets all of a sudden are rapidly growing liabilities, and they're offside here on their cash holdings, on their tier 1 holdings. So we'll have to see with time what happens. There's a lot of chit chat going on out there. All we can say is we're seeing the repo is accelerating. There's some kind of a problem. We don't know what it is. Gold and silver are running higher. So.
Okay.
That's the most I can say from that, Sean.
Okay, a little color commentary for folks. I'm fascinated by that number, 74.6 billion. You're saying that was the money poured into the repo market on the evening of December 30th? So last night while we were sleeping, that was 74.6 billion, David?
Yep. That was the overnight amount. And that's from the New York Fed, not from the Fed itself. So you can look at it. You can search out New York Fed repo operations. That repo is repurchase. Yep. And it's a temporary injection of capital into the market.
It's overnight stuff because these banks can't trust each other. So the Fed steps in to say, hey, we'll play this third party where we're going to keep you all solvent. So, let's not bring the whole system down just yet. Here's what I think's interesting about 74.6 billion in one night, guys. There's only 800 million ounces of physical silver mined globally in a year. Feel free to round that up to a billion. We'll be generous. 1 billion times today's silver price at, say, 72 is $72 billion. There is so much paper fraud in this market that $75 billion, a $75 billion gift from the New York Fed to these banks, it doesn't scratch the surface to fill in the gaps of the fraud these banks have committed. I don't know. David, as we round out the conversation, I'll play this 2-minute video because, again, I want people to understand exactly how we got here, why they're feeling poor, and why this system guarantees that they will only be more poor as time goes by. I'll give you the final word, and please remind people how they can find your excellent work over on Substack.
Okay, you bet, Sean. My Substack is jensendavid.substack.com. So jensendavid.substack.com. My take is that the entirety of the story here, Sean, is that the price fixing system that's been in place for many decades, LBMA was formed in 1987 in the UK. That's the world's, or was the world's, principal physical gold and silver market. And they started this promissory note pricing system. What is happening is that price discovery is getting real. And we're seeing in front of our eyes a failure of a price fixing system. And so all the chit chat about bubbles and all this stuff is to me is just swill. The key thing here is direct ownership and direct possession of gold and silver. I even steer away from the mining stocks in general. But the key here, the key escape pod from what is coming is direct ownership and direct physical holding of these assets. And it's not a bubble, it's a failure of a price fixing, a price suppression system. And London is being abandoned as a financial center because of the revelation of this fraud. It'll take years to show up. But what is showing, because the imbalance was so great, is that these billions of ounces are seeking, a portion of the billions of ounces are seeking possession of metal, because it's been revealed that the London market is tapped out. It only has silver for delivery if it gets silver, first of all, shipped in. And I think it's a very, very short fuse on this, Sean. I think it can unwind in a matter of weeks or months. We'll know more with time. Nobody knows the future exactly. But it's a tremendous thing to see. And if you're not on this ship, you're going to have some challenges in the years ahead in terms of wealth preservation, because it's an unwinding of a fiat bubble system, a fiat debt system, and a speculative system, which is coming to a rapid end.
Can I pick your brain on one last thing before we play this video? And I'd really like you to stick around and watch the video, the 2-minute video with me, because I want you to comment on it from the heart after we watch that. But comment on this. I said to my wife just the other night, I think differently. She knows that. I've always thought differently. I mean, it got me in trouble at Target when I was a marketing executive for 10 years. Time of my life. I loved working for that company. But
I can't imagine you at Target.
Yeah, well, I was in the marketing department for 10 years, flying around the country, directing commercials. And look, got myself in trouble because I think differently. And regarding 9/11, I saw right away that we were being lied to. And, I talked about it with my poker buddies, friends of mine in the workplace. One of them bumped on that, and it got me in trouble with human resources. But look, I've always thought differently, and especially regarding the history of our money. Most people just seem uninterested. They don't know the history. They don't care to know the history. So I've got a friend named Chad, right? He had to move from the state of Minnesota to Idaho, and he had this mountain of physical silver that he had acquired over a decade. When nobody was paying attention, David. My point is they kept the price so artificially low that this gentleman, Chad, was able to acquire a king's ransom in physical silver. That should have never been possible. The plebs should have never been able to acquire so much physical silver that it makes it hard to move across the country, even with trucks and SUVs. We're not talking horse-drawn carriages here, David. Do you find it fascinating that so few people are intellectually curious enough to have seen that and then taken advantage of those prices? It just goes to show there's precious few with eyes to see and the ears to hear, David. And people should have never been able to acquire so much physical silver so cheaply. It was a gift for those with eyes to see.
Yeah, I mean, people's curiosity. It was a very interesting psychological operation that's been run, in that people that were asleep and that were, eating the pablum that was fed to them, were lionized, and the people that said, well, the veracity of information I'm getting from known liars is not adding up. And there's been decades of celebrating the state of waking sleepfulness, let's call it that. And I think what's happening now, like that angry guy video that you showed, is that things are getting so tough that people are really starting to suffer, and they're really starting to ask questions. And at the margins, people are waking up to silver and gold, and you got to believe the financial establishment is terrified of that, because that gives you the ability to vote with your feet out of the system and to make your own choices in the times ahead. The central planners are rapidly trying to put in place a digital ID and digital currency system, and likely social credit scoring system on the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party model. But I don't think it's going to work because I think people have had a bellyful of the central planners and their latest scheme. So leave it there, Sean.
All right, brother. The last paragraph, I want to read this for folks. As we leave 2025 and welcome in 2026, guys, the world is on track for entirely new silver and gold price levels as central planners double down on their destructive monetary policy action, undermining the purchasing power of their currencies and creating physical metal demand, ending the London silver and gold promissory note price fixing system that has operated there since 1987. Best regards, David Jensen. Do you have 3 more minutes, David?
Sure.
All right. Let's just watch this together before we say our goodbyes.
I'm going to blow your mind with some facts about money real quick. This is $1.25. This is minimum wage in the 1960s, but you'll notice something special about these quarters. They are all made of silver. This is what you would expect to get. Now, what is the current modern day 2025 equivalent of this? Well, one of these quarters is worth about $14, which means $70 per hour is the equivalent of 5 silver quarters. This is what a man would make in the 1960s, the bare minimum, which means if a man worked all day, he would make $560, which means if a man works 8 hours a week for 5 days a week, that's $2,800 at the end of the week. Do that for 52 weeks, that's $145,000 bare minimum. Minimum wage today is only $7.25 an hour. That means half of a silver quarter. Now, most men today make more than minimum wage. They make more than half a silver quarter an hour, but most men do not make 5 silver quarters in an hour. That is not going to happen. That's the equivalent of $70 an hour. That is not the world we live in. The dollar does not have the value and the spending power that it used to. Politicians for decades, for our entire lives, have been devaluing the dollar each and every election cycle. They spend and spend and spend. They're more focused with appeasing voters and getting reelected than they are than putting the power back into this quarter right here.
Putting the power back into this quarter right here. That ship has sailed. David, this stuff absolutely breaks my heart. Do you want to comment on that? $1.25 minimum wage in the 60s equates to $70 in silver purchasing power today. They've sold us out. They've absolutely sold us out. It's criminal. It's a crime scene, David.
Yeah, I'll maybe just say amen. And we can see how a shoe salesman on a single wage could afford a car paid with cash and a house, and his wife could stay home with the kids. That's how they've just been steadily producing more and more currency and killing the buying power of it. And gold and silver as warning systems were turned off. The warning system was turned off. and the equivalent is running a nuclear power plant at 200% of its rated output after you've turned off the warning systems. And that's what these central bankers did. That's what the brilliance of Greenspan did. Everybody called him the maestro. He was magic. Well, he became the Federal Reserve chairman in August 1987, and in December 1987, the price rating system of gold and silver in London were created. And Greenspan, throughout his tenure, was known. He had stated that one of his principal signals, if they were running excessively loose monetary policy, was the price of gold. So there he said, oh, the price of gold's not going up. What he didn't say was, we rigged it so it can't go up. So maybe we'll close it out there, Sean, as silver and gold in direct possession is going to become essential in the weeks, months, and years ahead.
I really appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. And in regards to Angry White Guy, okay, so not only does he not make maybe the $70 an hour that people were making in the 60s when we had silver backing our actual money, we had actual money. Now we just have Federal Reserve notes and currency, which they control and they debase every single day. But the anger comes from not only the debasement of our purchasing power and the inability to stay solvent, David, it's the taxation upon taxation upon taxation. And these bureaucrats in these cities, counties, and states, they just continue to raise our taxes because they think the money's free and there's no repercussions from constantly raising the taxes. Meanwhile, people are getting priced out of their homes. Literally, can't pay their energy bills, can barely pay their property taxes. This is going to end so badly. Again, I want to thank you and wish you a happy 2026.
Thank you. And just keep in mind, I agree with you, the taxation has continually increased, but the biggest taxation is the hidden taxation of inflation. That's what's been killing us. And once we get rid of this fiat fake currency system, the ability to tax people is going to be highly limited. And I think that's what we're heading for here, Sean.
All right. Thank you so much for taking time today. Again, guys, Jensen, david.substack.com. I'll leave a link below. One of the best and brightest minds in the space. And I'm just shocked people haven't been listening. I guess those who have been listening to us, David, well, that's a good thing. I just wish it was more people because
it's growing by the day, though. Growing by the day.
All right, brother. Thank you. Happy 2026.
Yep. God bless. All the best for 2026, Sean.
All right. God bless you. All right, friends, there he goes. David Jensen. I'll leave a link below. Thank you so much. I wish you all a very happy and hopefully prosperous new year. Although I think, honestly, guys, it's going to get pretty tough. I think we're behind the 8 ball at this point. Pray. Pray, pray, pray. All right, friends, thanks. I'll remind you every single day for free. Check us out to get the real news 24/7 at sgtreport.com. And until next time, may God the Creator continue to bless you and yours. Bye-bye.
I don't listen to Tim Pool. I'm like, I'm not going to waste, that's a waste of my time. Laura Loomer, are you kidding me? I mean, she is a Bolshevik. So there are people like, I don't even give them an ounce of my time. I do listen to Candace because I believe, it sounds like she broke away. And so, and that's awesome. And that's also puts her in a precarious position. But nonetheless, it's being very, very clear where the battle line is being drawn and who is on what side. Like, he has taken the knee to the Babylonian, Bolshevik, Khazarian, Zionist system. There is no freaking doubt.
Now he's the first Jewish president to serve 2 not consecutive presidencies.